got, starting here, Daniel Saynt, who runs Socialyte, which is an agency that helps brands navigate the space and find the right bloggers to work with. Then we have Eric, who is from United Talent Agencies. He's going to be talking about social media as it pertains to celebrities. And then another Eric, double Erics. Eric is the men's guru over at Saks, and we're both wearing Jay Lindenberg suits. So that's something else to note, I think.
Launching at Saks, right?
Then we have Christine Bender, who is an SVP over at Armani Exchange. And lastly, Andrew Schmidt from Puma, who is not only a good friend, but is taking me on a variety of trips with Puma. So he's going to be talking a bit about what they're doing. So let's start off and do a question for everyone. And so first, everyone here has done work with bloggers in the past. And so I think if we can just start off and say what you guys look for at your brands when you are working with a blogger, and how you make that decision. Maybe Daniel, kick it off and what you think.
Sure. Before obviously starting Socialyte, I worked with Rebecca Minkoff and really kind of worked with that brand to establish, what that brand's voice was, how do we establish it, how we build it, how we use bloggers to kind of increase that brand message. And what we learned, or what I learned from my years there, was really finding the right publisher is everything. So for us, in our approach for all the brands that we work with now, it's more about who is the right face, who is the right publisher, but also what are the analytics behind them. Are they selling product? What type of product are they selling? And knowing that information really helps us choose the best publishers.
Andrew, you've worked with, just on the trips, which obviously I've been a part of, you've worked with people who are really big and really small. So are analytics as important for Puma?
Yeah, for sure. I think you want to kind of take into consideration what the goal for the brand is, whether it's brand awareness or if you're actually trying to influence and drive sales. With the trips that we went on, for instance, it was more about brand awareness. So Puma had a 70-foot sailboat that was racing around the world, stopping in 10 ports. And so the idea behind that was to kind of bring people with different perspectives that had a different reach that might be able to kind of tap into a demographic that was interested in sailing or potentially interested in sailing. And through the different perspectives, that was kind of the goal. So there wasn't really trying to drive sales necessarily, but more about brand awareness and to kind of get the word out.
I think when you do come from when you have retail objectives, it is important to align yourself with bloggers that enhance your brand, enhance your message, but again, has that proven track record of driving sales, because at the end of the day, that's the ultimate testament of how healthy your brand is. Are people buying your product? And I think bloggers are an important tactic to leverage, because they do give an authenticity to your brand that you might not be able to convey on your own. They allow you to engage with your customer in a much more intimate, personal way, and it does give you an opportunity to, again, reach and scale in a way that you wouldn't be able to do in your own channels.
And I think, to jump in on that, I always say all the time, don't use technology for technology's sake. Use it to really drive your business goal forward, right? And so to look at the premise of your question, do you need to reach out to a blogger? Do you need a blogger outreach strategy? And if so, why? And what is the business goal at the end of that? Is it to get publicity and buzz? Well, then it's a different set of bloggers. Is it to get social awareness? Well, then maybe you need bloggers that have huge clout scores, right? So you sort of have to look at the objective of what you're trying to do and then look at the strategy kind of around that.
We're in a unique situation because Saks is a brand that carries a lot of brands. Hundreds, thousands of brands. So we need...
How many brands are you wearing now?
I'm wearing a few. But no, because we're looking for bloggers that also talk about the big brands, because those tends to be the reasons why our customer comes into the store, because we have the big brands. But when we launch new brands, we're looking for a very different type of blogger who's speaking about those unique, niche type of products. And we've had success when we've picked up new lines that this customer who comes into our store is not aware of, but yet the bloggers are blogging about it. So what we've had to do is actually shift inventory from the store, where it's not selling as well to the website, because there's a younger, hipper customer listening to those younger, cooler bloggers. And so we actually have a need for both.
That's interesting. I think, to kind of expand on that, bloggers have been used, I think in a lot of ways, brands have kind of dipped their foot into the pool, and they're kind of just putting their toe in and seeing, is this something that we want to do? You're not seeing bloggers yet fronting Revlon campaigns or on the covers of magazines. And so something I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to think is, do you think that bloggers have enough mass appeal to do that? Are they going to be the next spokespeople in a bigger way? Are they going to continue to replace celebrities? Or are they just finding their place in the market, which is somewhere in the middle? They're not quite a celebrity, but they obviously have a lot of pull in the industry.
Go ahead.
Well, I would say that we definitely are seeing the celebrity bloggers. We definitely see those personalities who stand out, and you really pay attention to the Brian Boys, the Man Repellers, individuals who are able to really have a large audience and really speak to that audience. For the collective greater, for all those kind of rising, for all those who are not at that level, I think it comes more into play, how does that person integrate into the brand? But also, how do those individuals become brands? How do those individuals sell their own product? How do those individuals kind of take that audience that they're using to create hundreds of thousands, millions of sales, to then say to themselves, well, I can get a higher amount if I have my own collection. I can have a higher amount of that affiliate if I'm able to develop my own line. So I think it's more about, there is no right answer in terms of what a blogger can accomplish. It really does become about that individual and what opportunities are presented to them to allow them to get to that place. But I think we're going to see more bloggers developing lines, more bloggers fronting collections, more bloggers on the covers of publications. I think Kate Upton's a great example of someone who grew through viral success. She wasn't a blogger, but a YouTube video is what got her onto the cover of Vanity Fair, onto the cover of Vogue, and onto the cover of Elle. We're going to see more of those discoveries coming from digital.
Niche is the new mass, right? And if you are a niche player and have 100,000 Twitter followers per se, and a very loyal email list and a readership, you can launch, as you said, you can get onto the cover of Vanity Fair, right? And so the more niche you are and the more loyalty you have, in many ways, the bigger you are right now.
Well, if you're saying niche is the new mass, then do you think that actually the whole system is going to change, that it's not going to be as important to get on the cover or to be that spokesperson, but that you can be the Kate Upton of your niche market? You can be the person in that small space, and our brand's going to just take the spend that they would usually say beauty, and now instead of just beauty, it's 15 things across beauty, and each one has a different spokesperson.
Absolutely, and as we dive down and get nicher and nicher, right? The analytics and the statistics and the exactly who you're targeting will be able to be more effective for the brands.
And speaking of that, of media spends and advertising budgets, someone like Puma, right, probably has the largest budget up on this stage as far as marketing goes. And so social is a drop in that bucket. And how do how are you guys viewing that? And are you seeing it growing? And what do you think needs to happen to make that grow more quickly? If that makes sense. You want me to ask that again?
Has the social budget growing?
Yeah, I mean, how's the social budget going, and what is stopping it from growing more? What needs to happen in the marketplace for Puma to shift more dollars into social?
I mean, I think it's the market conditions. It's the way things are going. 2 years ago, you kind of had to push people to put things online or to really dedicate time and energy to it. And now every regional marketing manager that we work with is saying, like, digital's coming first. So when there's kind of a change within the company, then that money kind of starts getting allocated towards us. So yeah, I mean, our budget has grown lockstep, I would say, with the market. And where it gets allocated depends on what the campaign is. We use an agency that does most of our online spend, but we do have kind of a little nest egg that we can activate on and put towards certain things that we feel need it.
And I'd be interested to hear, in a physical space, with Armani Exchange and Saks, what you guys are doing to kind of bring things you're learning in digital into that physical space, and if there are things that you're able to do that you weren't able to do 2 or 3 years ago.
I think technology in the store has to provide utility. Like obviously there's an entertainment factor, but I think that that wanes. Once the novelty wears off, then what's the purpose of technology in store? So we're definitely exploring what that role is. I think it has to be scalable, because when you think about a specialty brand like Armani Exchange and the presence that we do have, like we are serving quite a large customer, so we want as many people to be able to engage with what we have for them in store. So NFC, for instance, is something that has been top of mind, and with the latest iteration of the iPhone, which would have, or it's supposed to have NFC technology, that's something that I think would help unlock that type of integration in store. I think you have to be very careful, though. You don't want to just distract the customer from the shopping experience. You want to enhance it. You want to help them make that decision to purchase. Again, it's all about driving that traffic into conversion. So any tactics that we leverage have to support that greater good. We all touch different areas of the business, but at the end of the day, I sell clothes. So I remember that every day, every time I walk into the office. So it's important to just, no matter what you're leveraging, it's serving that end purpose.
Well, and in terms of technology, I think every associate at our store in New York City has an iPad. So they're using that iPad to leverage the inventory that we have on our website in conjunction with the inventory in the store. If it's a size not available in the store, they can go to the iPad, see what's on the website, and then ship it directly to the customer. So again, it's using technology. We're calling it omni-channel. I'm sure I don't think that's a word I've heard yet today, but definitely omni, so that we can have one consistent message, whether it's on the website, whether it's at the store, and then using Instagram and the iPad and things like that to sell it wherever it may be, whether it's at the warehouse, whether it's for the website, or whether it's in the store.
Go ahead.
I mean, I would say we definitely seen an increase in budget in what brands are spending on the blogosphere, what they're investing in that development of content. I think a lot of brands have realized that, yes, you can do social media, but when you have to fill those channels with a constant 24-hour news cycle of content and conversations, it's very difficult to do that without influencers, without bloggers, without activating them. So we're starting to see them realize that if they want to have success in social media, they need to work with bloggers. It's not an also, it's more of a need, and because of that, the budgets have increased. When we started Socialyte, we were getting brands saying, well, we have $100 for a placement, and now we're seeing brands where we have $100,000 to actually make something happen. And that's where it's getting more intelligent, that's where it's getting more in-depth, that's where the content's spreading across an entire year, and really developing these smart campaigns that look beyond just what you're doing in social, but also how are you filling those channels, what is the content that's on there, is that content sellable, and is that influencer also selling and returning that customer back to your online store? Those are the things that get us excited about the space.
Can I talk about, just for a second, I think the cross-section, or where the two intersect of the physical and the digital spaces right now is the most exciting thing about this space right now. Because 10 years ago, everyone thought the internet was going to kill the physical place, right? Amazon was going to destroy Barnes & Noble, right? Then we went into this period where, okay, well, maybe now the two can sort of live together, but sort of separately. Now, thanks to smartphones and mobile and iPads and so forth, the digital space and the physical space working together, right? The fact that you pull out your phone and call an Uber, the fact that you're a retailer and should have data every time that somebody walks into your store. That space right now is only beginning to be explored, and I think will explode, but I think is so exciting in sort of how technology can help the physical place and how the physical place can help the technology. And I think I'm really excited to actually see that grow.
And I'll just say one other thing in terms of using the bloggers in the digital space to get people into the store. Again, when we've had events, when we've had Fashions Night Out, when we've launched a new brand, and we're able to tap into the right bloggers, we're seeing people that would never have normally stepped a foot into Saks Fifth Avenue come in. So we're seeing a whole new demographic of younger people coming into Saks. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know you had this. I didn't know you had this line. So it's completely changed the events in the physical store, because we are reaching out to these influencers in the digital realm.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying really does speak to the idea of the personal celebrity. We've kind of seen celebrities really rise up, and celebrities are still extremely important in terms of how we're selling, but now you have these individual influencers who speak to that audience and who are really, really great at saying, buy this, come here, meet me. And having that personal relationship with someone and having a relationship that isn't really established in the celebrity world because there is that wall is really kind of what's bringing so many bloggers to the table, really bringing so many influencers to the forefront as to marketing campaigns and how we develop those.
Question for you, Eric, is that I think traditional celebrities survived for so long on a lack of access and mystery, right? I mean, we love celebrities because they're mysterious. They're not like us. And there's been a lot of very public and famous trip-ups when celebrities are starting to do social. And now there's all this access all the time. And coming from a talent agency that's managing these very, people who are very, they're out there. Everyone sees them. What are you doing to help that? Like, how are you managing celebrities in this new world, and what is that doing to the idea of what celebrity is?
So I think the foundation, I say, is that we've crossed the Rubicon. The toothpaste is out of the tube, right? People want their celebrities to be obtainable now, right? That's what the people expect. That's what the audiences now expect. And if a celebrity or if a client of mine is not on social media, in any sort of form, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, a lot of clients are now doing Reddit AMAs, right? Ask me anything, right? The premise of that alone says everything, right? That these celebrities are now putting themselves out there to have a dialogue with their fans. And I think it makes them stronger. I think it makes the connection stronger. I think it makes them as a brand stronger. And so don't expect that to go away. As a matter of fact, expect it to get more and more. And the people who aren't there, the people who aren't on those platforms are beginning to lose opportunities. They are beginning to not see their power in the same way, or their influence and reach in the same way. And so we're there. I mean, you just have, like it or not, that's sort of where we are right now, because that's what the audience wants.
I think the same thing, I'd like to hear what it's doing to brands. Eric, you've talked about how you think men's style blogs have done a lot to demystify this space. And so how do brands engage in social media and tell these stories all the time and continue to keep a consistent message and also keep some shred of mystery and...
Well, there's the celebrity blogger and influencer, and then there's the street style blogger and influencer. And what we find is that, I deal with the men's area, is that the men respond to these street style bloggers because that's what demystifies fashion. I think that's what guys are looking for. They're looking for answers. Where I think with the women shoppers, they love the glamour, the sex appeal of the celebrity. But our men's customer, they love the sort of this authentic street style influence. And so again, it's kind of what's the difference between men and women? Where do you tap into? Who are you looking for? So again, we've found great success with the street style bloggers and influencers and partnering with them.
I think how we're approaching fall, for instance, and denim is a big focus for us. I'm wearing a pair right now. Shameless plug. But how we're messaging our denim to women is very different than how we're messaging it to men. Women shop, men buy. So our approach has been much more directional with women and much more, inspirational with women and much more directional with men, because we can be more forthright. Men like to know what to buy and seek that guidance. So who we've partnered with definitely has that credibility in the men's space. So we've been very careful to make sure that we've crafted our stories specifically for men and women, so they resonate better. And they're still driving towards that same strategy that we've set. So I think it's important to make sure, rather than have a blogger strategy or a Facebook strategy or a social strategy or what have you, it's really what are those business objectives that you're driving, and how do all of these channels further that goal for you, and that's how you maintain consistency wherever you are.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How do you guys define a blogger, right? Because if I walk into your store and I have a good or a bad experience and I tweet on Facebook about it, am I a blogger all of a sudden? Or is it just someone who actually has a www.something.com
So I think
site?
that's a great question. So I think we treat everybody like customers first and foremost. You're a customer. If you post on our Facebook, we're going to reach out to you because we want to understand why you had a great experience or why you had a bad experience, and we want to change that. If you're a blogger, I think because of social media, we've all become brands. we all have audiences, whether we have our own Tumblr page or we just have a Facebook presence or we just have an Instagram presence. We are all brands and we all have an audience that follow us that we have some sort of obligation to, right? Like we know how it feels when we post something and all of our friends like it, and we want to continue that feeling. So I think with bloggers, it's a term. For me, it's scalability, what they stand for, what presence that they have, how do they leverage, and at the end of the day, are they moving product? I think a blogger is a marketer and helps brands adapt their voice to a specific customer to, achieve a certain business objective. So again, it's how I think it's how you interact and how you and what your presence is.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, we don't really even call our talents bloggers, we call them socialites. It really is about someone who has that influence, who can actually move that crowd, who can move that needle. And we look at specific things within the members that we represent to really reflect that. So they have to have above 50,000 social followers. They have to be someone who is the face of their brand. They have to be someone who visually is appealing. They have to be someone who their site, their aesthetic, the look, the feel, it is what the industry is looking for. And I think what we're starting to see is, yes, blogger is a very general term. There are millions of bloggers. There are millions of people, and they're not that important. There is a select group of people who are extremely important, and that's what we look for. That's a socialite.
So continuing that, how do you guys as brands make sure you're working with the right person? Like, to your point, there are, I think, 135 million blogs. And there's probably 20% of that is fashion. So I'm not a math guy, but that seems like a lot of fashion blogs out there. And so, what services are you using to find? Are you using agencies to find people? Or are you just using social teams? How do you find the right people to work with?
So when you work internally at a brand, I think you have a point of view on who you should be working with, and it's very important to have that strong identity and know who the right affiliations are. So I think it definitely comes from our team. We define who best portrays what our brand stands for and who will translate it in the way that pushes our boundaries comfortably. I think with digital, especially when you are a heritage brand, retail companies have been slow to adapt digital because it requires a relinquishing of control. Like you open yourself up to interpretation, and rather than kind of shy away from it, you have to embrace it, but you have to do it with trusted partners. So I think first and foremost, like that's what we look for with the people that we partner with. Like, do we trust that they will interpret our brand in the way that honors our heritage, but also helps us chart new territory.
And we work with so many brands, and that is the biggest challenge, is to let these big brands relinquish control.
Right.
To get dirty. We was talking earlier, talking about getting a little bit dirty, and a lot of these brands just don't want to let themselves get dirty, but you kind of have to at a certain point. And even as Saks, we have to sometimes relinquish control and let the digital space just do what it does and respond to it as best we can.
Right. It's a missed opportunity, much like your celebrities. Like while there is this air of mysticism that has worked in the past, there's been, everyone wants more. And when a customer chooses to follow you online, they are looking for that deeper relationship. They want to look behind the curtain. They want to know what's happening. So again, like we have to think about it in a different way. Like that interaction has to be extraordinarily personal, but that's how you cultivate loyalty with your customer, with your audience.
And Andrew, I mean, for the things that you've done with Puma, how did you, when you put those groups together, you said that you were looking for people that kind of touched on different points. What was the ability to storytell? Was that what was the difference maker in who you picked, more than the following?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the following plays into it. You want to have that message go out to as many people as you can. It's not just, you're not just bringing someone along for the ride because like they post a couple nice photos. But it depends on what it is, like for the lifestyle stuff, it's a little bit different than what we do for the performance stuff. And there's always different stories going on for, is it soccer, is it running, or is it just kind of like sneaker culture? So to find the people in those spaces that do have an influence is difficult. We use kind of a variety of different things. A lot of it comes from internal, people just sending links around in blogs and saying, check this person out, they're a good fit for the brand. We've used Fohr, we've used agencies. It's kind of a conglomeration of everything.
Fantastic. I think maybe for a last question, it's here if there are bloggers, I know there's a lot of bloggers here today, what they can do to better position themselves to work with brands. And also if you're getting pitched a lot. It's something whenever I take meetings with brands, I always ask them how much they're getting pitched by bloggers. And I am astonished by how many say they're getting 0 pitches a week. Bloggers aren't emailing them fully thought out ideas. And so if that's your experience and what your advice is to those people who are looking to work with you.
I would say for influencers who really want to be a part of the fashion industry is understand where you fit within the industry. It's not always about the face, it's about the editor, it's about the creative eye, it's about the photographer. Realize that there's more opportunities in really being a piece of the cog of what makes a shoot successful, or a piece of a cog of what makes a campaign successful, and really focusing on those talents. Also, think of yourself and think about your blog as a resume. It's a business card. It's, what have you succeeded at? What have you done before in the past? Which brand associations do you have? Which press hits have you received? Things like that become very, very important for brands as they're making decisions. Also, selfless plug, like work with an agency. It's, it's becoming more and more, or less and less, we're seeing brands reach out directly to influencers. They're going to agencies just to find out who to work with. They're using applications like Fohr. They're using groups like us to really find out who to work with, associate with that, connect to it. I think there's fair practices in that. And I think there's a way for you to grow by just really paying attention to what your agent can do for you and what your manager can do for you.
I think you need a clear point of view that's differentiated because, like I think we've mentioned a couple of times, there are so many bloggers. Why are you different than everybody else? I think it's important to just have a clear idea of what you stand for and make sure that it's consistent, because I think what brands are looking for, again, is that that understanding of how you're going to interpret them in your own way, and make sure that it does enhance their identity.
And I think looking across platforms, right, is what is your presence as a blogger on YouTube? Do you have a presence on YouTube? What is your presence on Vine? What is your presence on Instagram, right? And how can a story that I can pitch to you as a blogger, how can I have different components of it that can live in different parts of your social graph? And I think that's really important as well. It's no longer just this old-fashioned thing called a website. It's now the entire package. And what does that entire social graph and reach look like?
I also think, if you have a set list of brands that you are going after that you want to work with, to be loyal and treat it as a business and be ethical about it. Like, there's nothing more annoying than, we do something with one person and then like the next week they're posting about our competitors just the same way they do to us. And it's like, you have to kind of treat it, if you're really trying to make it into a business, like you have to treat it like one and, be loyal. If things change, then of course that's going to happen. But I think, having some consistency and standing for something instead of just being like, oh, this person's sending me free product this week, I'm going to post about it. I mean, to an extent that's cool, but if you're really like working with brands, I think you need to be pretty professional about it.
Or when I was at CNN, we had a saying that authenticity was the new objectivity, right? And I think that's always important, right? Make sure that you're authentic, and like you said, right? Just don't post something. Make sure you're real, and people will set that out if you're not authentic.
And just in terms of the pitch and me being approached, as Zach's being approached, I do get pitched, but I always leave the pitch not exactly sure what it is that they're pitching. So again, in terms of those that are interested in working with us, like, have a clear message, have a clear point of view, exactly what is it that you're offering us, and how does it relate to what we do?
So saying,
Just
I
be
want to work
prepared.
with you is not enough?
Do your due diligence. What?
saying, I'd like to work with you is not enough.
Yeah, and I get that all the time, you know, and they'll set up a meeting or a coffee, and then it's over, and I'm like, what does he want? What does she want?
Free clothing.
I guess, I don't know. So
Where
again,
are Pumas on this panel, okay?
I think so. I think that's it for questions to you guys. But we'll see if anyone out there has any.
So kind of what I'm hearing through a bunch of this as a creative, potentially pitching to one of you guys, I don't do blogging, but do like art direction for television, is trying to come up with a value proposition for you. Some type of way that whatever I'm gonna do is gonna make you money, right? And I feel like in the creative industry, we kind of don't like going down that road. We're scared to go, it's gonna make you $100,000 if you work with me, you know? But that's something that we have to become comfortable by it being a business. It's not just art, you know? So just kind of following up with that.
I think it is important. I think to me, a great idea is one that works. So as a creative person that is planning on pitching for new business, case studies I think always go a long way. So proving what you've done in the past and how that's driven results speaks volumes. I think it is difficult to forecast how successful a social, you know, I've come from the agents, if I have an agency background, I've heard my clients always tell me, I want a viral idea. We can't promise you a viral idea. We can do our best based on how we know, you know, what we know our audience is consuming online and based on some other programs, but it's difficult to predict how something is going to be received. So I think, again, hindsight is 20/20. Take what you've done, establish a case for it, and make sure that you've learned from it. And that's what I would use if I were pitching for new business, and that's what I have done when pitching for new business.
Also, to your point, you know, you do something very specific. You don't have a blog. It's a good time for those type of creatives who don't necessarily have a presence to connect. You know, there's a lot of bloggers out there who are looking for creatives like you, who want to work on projects with you. And it's very, very easy to enhance the quality of content across the blogosphere by just partnering artists with the people who have the voice, the people who have the audience. So think about it that way as well. Look through the blogosphere, find people who really kind of fit within your category, and then partner up, because you're going to have a much stronger pitch. You're going to have your success, your training, what you've done in your career now attached to an influencer who speaks to 100,000, million, 10 million people.
Anyone? We got one behind.
Sorry, this question's for Eric specifically, although I'd be interested in anything the rest of you have to say about this as well. Sorry, Eric Jennings. From a multi-brand retailer's point of view, further to an example that you gave earlier about, say you're launching a new brand and you are inviting bloggers and things like that. Obviously, you are capitalizing on the cachet both of the brand identity and the blogger's identity, whether they have mass appeal or it's a more niche market. Where does the identity of Saks fit within that, and how do you maintain the Saks identity through the lens of the brand identity and the blogger identity?
Well, again, it's all about brand positioning. Like, brand curates a lot of different brands. We buy specific things from a lot of the same brands that our competitors do. So again, we have to kind of create our own identity and our own point of view, and then look for partners, influencers, bloggers, that are in line with our overall point of view, so that they can represent these other brands in line with the way we want them represented in our store. Does that make sense? So again, it's always this filtering, this editing, till you find the right partners, till you find the right brands, till you find the right product from those brands. So that gives you a clear point of view, a differentiated point of view, and then finding those partners that can help establish that.
Excellent. I think we're up for time, huh? Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all.